Good evening and welcome to the Writer's Block. I'm your host, John Ronan, and as you know now, in our 32nd year, I talk to writers about their craft, what they're working on, what they've accomplished, what they're planning for the future. Sometimes we have novelists, sometimes poets, sometimes journalists, all sorts of writers. We are also open sometimes to other brands of artists. We have had on a couple of sculptors, we have had on musicians, we've had on actors, and also other brands. If you have an idea for a guest who might be a good fit for the Writer's Block, watch for our address at the end of the show. We'd be glad to get your suggestions. I also want to remind you that the Writer's Block and all the other original programming coming out of 1623 Studios is a result of cable access television. It's a wonderful community service and you don't get it with Dish. So stick with cable, stick with the Writer's Block. Tonight, I'm very happy to say we do have a writer. She is a novelist and short story writer and playwright. So she mixes subgenres in literature. Her name is Linda Finigan, and she is a Rockport resident who has been in and out of Rockport for about 40 years, and originally studied at SUNY University in Buffalo, now called the University of Buffalo, and also took a degree in film at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. You may remember her from 4 years ago when she discussed her novel Love and War. Linda Finigan, welcome back to the Writer's Block.
Good to see you again, John.
I mentioned that you took a degree in film. Did that prepare you for exploring drama and moving at times away from straight prose?
Yes, in a sense, it was experience in conveying a story through dialogue and scene direction versus a lot of description and setup and interior monologue that you have in prose. So it did lead in a good direction in that way, even though I never pursued it. I made a few short films, but never worked in that field.
Never worked in that field?
No.
Now that you're writing plays, do you want to produce the plays?
Do I want to produce? Yes, yeah, I've thought of it from time to time. But I'm also very happy and extremely grateful when somebody else does it, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
We collaborated on one of your plays at the old theater.
Yeah, at the Roger Street Theater.
Yes,
yes, that was fun. But as you say, a lot
of work.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's not just you and the pen.
Right,
All kinds of people are involved.
All the logistics and time scheduling and
There is a little relief sometimes if you're writing a play and you want to put in some of that description. Oh no, that's the director's job.
Right.
I don't have to think about that. When did you start thinking about writing plays?
It had been in my mind for quite a while. One of the things I've enjoyed most about fiction writing is writing dialogue, and that's one of the things that always has flowed the easiest for me, as opposed to setting up a scene or describing what things look like, although I enjoy doing that too. But I always, found dialogue very easy to come by, and so it just seemed like a natural fit. And then many years ago, Linda Robinson started offering her 10-minute playwriting workshops through the Gloucester Writer Center, and I took it the first time she offered it, because I was up here for the summer that year, and I was sort of hooked. I mean, just the ease, not really the ease, I mean, any writing is difficult, but to be able to begin and end something within a short frame of time,
10 minutes.
And just even the time it takes to work on it could be, a month or a few weeks, including revisions, as opposed to years and years that it's taken me to write novels.
I want to mention Linda Robinson is the very well-known dramatist and actress well-known in New England, who is also from Rockport, and a very, very, very talented woman.
Yes, indeed, yes.
So when did you first start to write the plays?
It may have, it may have been 2010 or around there.
So it's been some time.
Yeah, 10 or 11 years, I guess, yeah.
And you not produced, but you were worked with an actress and an actor named Lily and Justin.
Yes.
For a play that I think you did under Linda's supervision?
Well, she and her partner Richard were the directors of it, and that particular play, it's called Swing and a Miss. It's a Swing and a Miss.
Swing and a Miss.
It's a baseball play and a romance play. And it was part of the Playwrights Platform Festival this June.
Yes.
And Lily and
I
Justin.
watched it, yes.
Yeah, and it was on Zoom, but...
You brought something to read.
I do. I have an excerpt from Swing and a Miss, and also a little short story excerpt from...
Well, tell us about Swing and a Miss, then. This is a 10-minute play.
Mm-hmm. And it started, as many things that I write start through a title. Swing and a Miss just stuck in my mind watching Red Sox games, because the announcers on New England Sports Network are so colorful and lively, and I've always enjoyed their banter and their language and vocabulary, and I always knew I wanted to write something called Swing and a Miss, but I didn't know if it would be a story or... Then it came to me, no, it could be a 10-minute play, and I started, when I would watch baseball, I would take notes on some of the colorful language.
So much of baseball language is entered our universal language.
Yes, right, the metaphors and the, yeah. So in this particular play, there's a woman who takes a seat at a bar next to a young guy who's watching a baseball game on the bar screen, and she's waiting for a blind date, and he's turns out to be late, and the young man is real baseball enthusiast, and he's trying to get her to watch the game, and he's asking her, don't you like baseball? And, oh yeah, it's okay. And then gradually they get to know each other a little bit, and there's also a third character who's an announcer, but he doesn't appear in what I was going to read. But he periodically comments in baseball lingo on what they've just said in a way, or how he strikes out a lot initially, and the announcer is commenting on how things are going between them.
I want to go back just a couple sentences. Who were your favorite announcers that you were taking notes from?
I like Jerry Remy a lot.
Yeah.
And I think now Dennis Eckersley is great and a lot of fun to listen to.
What expressions, can you think of 2 or 3 expressions that are your faves?
I don't know, bouncing out on the warning track always sticks with me. Like
Say that again?
It's bounced on the warning track. I always like that one because it just seems so apropos to so many things in life.
Warning track.
Get onto the warning track.
Nice term, yeah. How long did it take you to write this 10-minute play?
Not long. I mean, maybe a month of writing it and revising it and fine-tuning it. And
there's an old journalism line, I would have made it shorter, but I didn't have time.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of applies to 10-minute scope of a play.
Right.
So tell us about the sample you brought and what you want to illustrate by reading that.
Well, this is the 2 people, the man and the woman, seated beside each other on the bar, and he is watching the game, and she doesn't know much about baseball. And in this scene, she reveals something about herself that is not obvious at the beginning, when she just looks like an attractive woman who's drinking her white wine and he's chugging his beer.
I remember the big news.
He's wearing a baseball cap and he just got off work. He's got a T-shirt and doesn't look that put together. But she's waiting for this date.
Is she telling the truth?
That she's waiting for a date? Yes, yeah. But the guy is later. Actually, he's probably going to stand her up at the end. But
good.
Okay.
So what the 2 characters are named?
It's a man. They're not named. It's a man and a woman. And the man begins speaking, and I'm going to try to do it without saying man, woman, because I think it will be obvious who's saying what. So the man's watching the game. Says, do you believe this game? Can we catch a friggin' break? Okay, this next batter is going to do it. Watch this batter. And the woman says, so why does the catcher have his fingers down there? And the guy turns, what? At his crotch. It's weird. His fingers fluttering around there all the time. Plus, is he wearing nail polish? And the man says, it's so the pitcher can see his signals. The catcher is talking to the pitcher with his hands. Ah, it's why the pitcher's shaking his head all the time. Yes, he doesn't want to do that pitch. He's telling the catcher to pick another one. That would be great, wouldn't it? If you could do that in life. Shake your head at what it throws you. Nope, don't like that one. Not gonna do it. Show me something else. No kidding. I do a lot of things differently, wouldn't you? Yeah, sure. I'm a single mom. What'd you say? Life, throwing you a curveball. I have a little boy, just me on my own. The dad's not around? That's one way of putting it. And that's the end of it.
So that's the big news.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then it goes on to talk about she never went to college. It turns out he is in law school, working on his father's lobster boat to put himself through school, and he's at the end encouraging her to get her degree. And it seems like they're really hitting it off well, but then there's like another curve or two that happens. But in the end, they do leave together.
But her date never shows up.
And her date never shows up. And he says it toward the end, look, the guy is late. Let's just, you and me, go somewhere else. It's quieter and talk. But then it's the bottom of the ninth inning, and the top of the order is coming up, and he says, no, oh, wait a minute, we've got to see this. And she gets exasperated again, but they do wind up leaving.
I remember when I saw that, I thought because her so-called blind date never shows up, so maybe she was just using that as an excuse to hang out in the bar, and not lose face.
She's a single mom. No. She legitimately had the blind date, but he never.
Does he show up in the sequel?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't thought about a sequel.
Was it fun and amazingly so to see this produced?
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, I thought Lily and Justin did a terrific job. And Richard, too. Richard, Linda's partner, was the announcer, and he did great, as well as juggling all the technical aspects of it, which were considerable, because every once in a while the sound effect would come in, or crowd noise.
Did it happen because of the actors' abilities and because of the production values that you saw things in these characters that you hadn't seen, that the actors saw and the directors saw?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think more about that. I thought that they really brought pretty much to life how I had envisioned it would be.
And did Linda Robinson or Richard come to you for input about what does this line mean?
I'm sure they did. I was not part of most of the rehearsals, but I'm pretty sure that was Linda's approach when I would see her direct other things, of really looking at the turning points in a script and where things changed.
Yes. You were one of the principals who started the Rogers Street Theater that was lasted 2 years, 3 years?
2, I guess.
2 full years?
Yeah, I mean, I was not part of it toward the end. And then, of course, COVID finished it off.
Yeah. Did you think more about writing plays or move more towards that because of your experience as being a theater owner, a theater producer?
No, I mean, I think at that point in time, that took so much time that I didn't really have as much time for writing as I wanted.
A lot of work.
Yes.
I know.
Headaches.
I know you had to go to a lot of rehearsals to be one of the producers present.
Yes.
And I saw you at many of them.
Oh, yes.
So, are you going to write more plays?
Yes, I'm working on 2 now that are in very, very rough
Short plays?
stages. Short plays, 10-minute plays.
10 minutes.
And I have an idea for a longer play, but I don't know if I'll ever go further with it. Every once in a while I take notes and put it in my long play folder, but...
Now, when you say long play, do you mean a 40 or 50-minute one act, or do you mean a full 3 or 4 act tragedy?
Well, this particular play, I was thinking could be done in both ways, like starting out with a one act and then expanding it into a full 3-act play. But as I say, I don't know if I'll really do it ever. It would involve a lot of permissions, music permissions. So, and that in itself is daunting and probably a deal breaker for anyone who would ever want to put it on. So,
yes.
Yeah, why bother in that sense? But I might someday.
I checked in for music for this show a couple of times, different songs that mentioned writing. And one price was $250 an episode.
Oh, an episode?
Yes.
Yeah, oh, I believe it, yeah.
So I decided against
Yeah,
it.
right, yeah.
It's a tough decision.
Use something right generic.
Now you write, you're a novelist, which I mentioned earlier, and you write plays, but you're not confined to plays and novels. You also are writing short stories.
Yes, I've always written short stories, and I've just recently, in the last few weeks, finally, completed a collection of 15 interconnected stories that basically are a novel in stories. After having written 4 novels, I decided I'm never, ever going to write another novel until somebody, really does the right thing and publishes it the right way. But, I could maybe do these short stories. So I sort of like backed into writing, what is essentially a novel, but
Before the show, we were talking about that kind of format and mentioning Olive Kittredge, which is a collection of short stories often referred to as a novel. Is it similar to Olive Kittredge?
It is. It very much is, and it also takes place in a New England seacoast town. But that's where the similarities, I would say, end. Most of my characters appear throughout all 15 of the stories, with the exception of a couple that...
So where is this, what's the name of the seaside village?
It's Bell Harbor.
Bell Harbor.
And it takes place in an old house that has a little rental cottage beside it. And so it is about the lives of the people who live in that house and the cottage over a few decades.
Oh. Sounds interesting. And you brought an excerpt from one of the stories.
Yes.
Can you tell us something about that particular story and give us a little background on what you're going to read?
This story is called Paradise, and it's the second story in the collection.
And what's the collection called?
Summer People.
Summer People.
And what I'm going to read is a young married couple come upon this house for the first time that's on the market. In the first story, there's an older woman who lives in it, and that first story is about her life and what happened in that house, and also in the cottage next door. And then the house goes on the market, and this young couple have come up to Bell Harbor for the day and come upon the house.
Is this the present?
Yeah, well, no, this is actually 1984.
Okay.
And it winds up ending up in the present. I ended it in, the last story is in 2019, but I ended it before COVID because I just didn't want to deal with that.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
And then the plague happened. And
Right. Come back for volume 2 next year. Well, Paradise, then. You're going to read an excerpt from Paradise?
Paradise, yes.
Okay.
I'm going to get a little sip of water here before I begin. And the young couple, their name is Catherine and Tom. Catherine didn't know why she'd never taken the train up the coast from Boston to visit Belle Harbor before. She'd loved the place as a child when she visited with her parents. One hot August day, a few years after they were married, she persuaded Tom to go with her. It was a short walk from the train station into town. Passing a realtor's window, Catherine made her husband stop to look at the posted flyers. There it was, the house on Fairview Road. 4 bedrooms, including the one in the attic, 2 baths, seasonal ocean views, the cheapest listing in the window. That's because there's something wrong with it, Tom said to her when she pointed this out. There has to be. Can't we at least walk by? They hadn't been looking for a house. They'd been looking for jobs. Still, the small Back Bay apartment they'd found after Tom got his degree in London was more than they could afford. Everyone told them they were wasting their dwindling wedding gift savings on rent. They had yet to find permanent jobs. Catherine asked inside for directions. Another mile up the coast, they came to the street, Fairview Road. Catherine turned to her husband with shining eyes. Even the name, Tom. Better than Crummy Vista, he allowed. Viewed from the curb, it was clear the place needed work. The garden was overgrown. A few shingles were missing. Let's go back to town and tell the realtor we want to see it, Catherine begged. You can't be serious. At least take a look. We're here for the day. We haven't found work in Boston. What if we found jobs here instead? I could be a waitress. I could temp until we found something. You could be a substitute teacher. Catherine, I have a PhD. I know that. In the end, she persuaded him they could at least have a look. You're going to love this place, the realtor raved as she unlocked the door. Bottle blonde and cheerful, her name was Dee. All it needs is a little elbow grease and imagination. Catherine and Tom hung back in the threshold. Their first impression was of echoing rooms and the musty smell of a shuttered house. The realtor's heels clattered through the halls. A single feather blew across the living room in the breeze. Dee exclaiming, "Look at this open floor plan." Out of the realtor's earshot, Tom issued a verdict. We can't afford it, Cat. He was firm. The house is a wreck. Nobody's done anything on upkeep for at least 10 years. On the second floor, Dee opened what looked like a hall closet, which led to a narrow staircase. And here's the bonus, she gushed, a finished attic bedroom. Catherine saw herself locked away up there, scribbling in one of the notebooks she'd bought in the bookshop near the British Museum. She'd yet to write a word since an anguished outpouring after her miscarriage the previous winter. But in her attic room, I'll leave you two alone for a moment. The realtor quietly retreated down the stairs. We have to buy this house, Tom, Catherine pleaded. Her husband sighed. The plumbing's old. I bet the wiring is old. Look at the faucets. We can clean them. The guest room toilet seat's cracked. That's $10, $20. Tom, look at this place. Come here. Catherine grabbed him by one arm and pulled him to the east-facing window, raising her upturned face to his. He knew already, after everything she'd been through, all he'd put her through, he couldn't disappoint her. There's a lighthouse through the branches.
Fairview Street.
Fairview Road.
Fairview Road, and the story's named Paradise.
And well, that particular story is Paradise, yeah.
Does this end well?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, for some characters it does, yeah, for sure.
Thank you for that. I'm interested in why you chose that section of that story and that story at all, instead of another section from another story.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I've kind of view the house and the cottage next door also as characters in this collection. So it seemed like a point to show this young couple when, they still have life ahead of them, first encountering the house that we've seen in the first story when it still belongs to another person.
I thought it was interesting that you picked that story with a young couple. And your play, Swing and a Miss, is about a young couple.
Oh, yeah,
do you often write about young people starting out?
I will have to think about that, possibly. No, but I've also written a lot of stories, and in this collection too, there's a few stories about aging and.
Well, I enjoyed that. I wanted you to continue it because
Oh, good.
with the Fairview Road and the name of the story, Paradise, and then just throws in a miscarriage, and they don't have work. Well, there's a combination here of dark clouds and bright clouds, optimism and negativity on his part. And so it looks like there's friction, which you need. You need in short stories.
Oh, good.
Any kind of fiction. When will that be finished? The book, or is the book?
It is finished. It is finished. So right now I'm first starting to give it to readers, like my writers group and other people who've expressed interest, friends, and Michael, my husband, is going to read it.
Good, good. I love the mixing of the genres. I want to ask you, we don't have an awful lot of time left. Do you write every day, a certain amount of time, at a certain period of the day, or do you write when the grandchildren aren't around?
I write whenever I can find time to write. I don't have a schedule. I used to when I first was starting out writing, when I was the young person starting out, I used to get up at 4:30 in the morning, and before I would take the subway to my job in Boston, and do that every single day. That's when I first started writing what became Love and War many years later. But I don't have a schedule anymore.
You're more mature and more wise. You don't get on the computer at 4 in the morning before.
No, I'm more of a night owl than a morning person. Sadly, I'm always hoping I'll become a morning person. But
what are you working on now after Paradise or after Summer People?
I don't know. I'm taking a little bit of a breather. I know I'm going to have to revise, and I never send anything out anymore, just seldom. And I have 3 novels that I should try to find an agent for. So I'm going to try to do a little bit of marketing.
Well, you're still out there.
Which is the thing I hate to do, and it's so time-consuming.
Well, I admire the energy. I want to thank you, Linda Finigan, for being on the Writer's Block,
It's been great.
telling us something about your mix of styles and a mix of genres, plays, short stories, novels. Very interesting and hopeful. It's exciting.
Oh, thank you.
I want to thank everybody out in our TV audience as well for being with us. If you've learned something from Linda Finigan about her playwriting, about her short story writing, or about her novels, and the energy and dedication and hope it takes to go out there and put that pen to paper, then the Writer's Block has done its job. Thanks for being with us, and I hope to see you again next week on the Writer's Block. Good night.